you seen Star Wars?
In a recent interview with Empire, Ewan McGregor, who played Obi-Wan Kenobi, talked about the upcoming Kenobi series and even talked about the new love the prequel trilogy has founded. He told Empire, "I'm more excited about doing this one than I was doing the second and third one that we did before. I'm just excited about working with Deborah Chow, and the storylines are going to be really good, I think. I'm just excited to play him again. It's been long enough since I played him before." Now, it doesn't really surprise me that he's more excited for his role as Obi-Wan this time around. His character is more popular among the Star Wars fandom these days, and plus, when he was making Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, episodes 2 and 3, it was right after episode 1, The Phantom Menace, had all that negative attention and backlash, so now that there's actually more anticipation from the fans for his show, the Kenobi series, as compared to the negative narrative surrounding the prequels during the early 2000s, it makes sense why he's more excited this time around. He's also been away from the role for over 15 years now, and it's been long enough for the nostalgia for all of us to set in, as compared to when he was making the prequels. You know, he played the role, and then 2 years later he basically played it again, and then 2 years later he did it again. So now it seems like there's been a long enough gap for even Ewan himself to miss playing the role of Obi-Wan. But what hits home for prequel fans the most is what Ewan says here about the prequels' perception these days compared to when they were released. He says, "You know, our films weren't much liked when they came out. By my generation who loved the first ones, I think people of our generation wanted to feel the way they'd felt when they saw the first 3 movies when they were kids. And George Lucas wanted to take our ones in a different direction. He had a different idea. It was tricky at the time, I remember, but now, all these years later, I'm really aware of what our films meant to the generation they were made for, and the children of that time. They really like them. I've met people who, they mean a lot to them, those films, more than the original 3, and I'm like, are you kidding?" I think there are 2 reasons this surprises Ewan so much. The first reason is because those films were slandered for years by the older Star Wars fans and casual audiences non-stop in the early 2000s, basically all the way up until I think around 2010 and 2012 is when you really saw that prequel trilogy resurgence in the fandom. But before the sequel trilogy, the debate among Star Wars fans was really if the prequels were good or not. But now that people like me who grew up with the prequels are adults, or even some of us prequel fans are mostly just teenagers in their teenage years, a lot of us have fond memories of those films. Speaking from personal experience, Attack of the Clones was the first Star Wars film I remember seeing in theaters, and I have the most memories of seeing Revenge of the Sith in theaters. I remember seeing that probably 5 to 10 times when it came out. For me, it was a big Star Wars childhood moment in my life that we all kind of yearn for and remember and want our kids to experience. I remember skipping school to go see the film and seeing all the Star Wars fans in theaters swinging their lightsabers in the air inside that packed theater as the lights dimmed. Then the moments of cheer and laughter during Revenge of the Sith, like when Yoda killed those 2 clones or when Anakin and Obi-Wan destroyed the droids at the beginning. There's a lot of moments there that I remember and I look back with nostalgia. Because for me, that was Star Wars. That was my childhood growing up and going to see Revenge of the Sith. That was the big peak Star Wars moment of my childhood. Some movies don't age well, but sometimes we as a community can help them age with new perspectives of those films. And for Ewan to recognize that the fans have a sense of newfound appreciation of those films must mean a lot to him, because he and many others put a lot of work into the prequel trilogy. Another reason this change in tone towards the prequels might surprise Ewan is because this is exactly what George Lucas predicted would happen. George always said if you can get the kids on board, you would have fans for the next 20 years. And he's largely been right. After the original trilogy, Star Wars stayed strong for a lot of fans eagerly awaiting for more content after 1983's Return of the Jedi. And even in 1997 and 1999, the fandom was still active and remained loyal, die-hard Star Wars fans. Then in the early 2000s, after the prequels, they may have disappointed everyone who waited to see them and expected them to match the original trilogy in terms of quality, but the kids like me who grew up with the prequel trilogy fell in love with them, and that was simply because it was Star Wars. And now 20 years after the prequel trilogy started, a lot of those kids who grew up with those films are still fans to this day. It's crazy how often wrong, but also right George Lucas is, and he's more often right than he is wrong, but the prequels are not flawless films. But due to a lot of young fans, there's still Star Wars films that made them Star Wars fans. Since the prequels released, one of the most interesting topics and debates in the Star Wars fandom was if the new films that release for Star Wars should be geared towards the aging audience of Star Wars fans, or should it always be geared toward the younger audience, the kids that go to see these films. It's a debate that will likely never end as the cycle of Star Wars continues, and I'm interested in seeing if the history will repeat itself with the sequel trilogy. Will the kids who grew up with the sequel trilogy look at the hate that they've gotten in 20 years, say, hey, you know what, I get they have their flaws, but I actually really like those films. And a lot of people who grew up with me, for us that's Star Wars. For us that's the memories that we have of our childhood of going to see those Star Wars films, and maybe they don't age well. Maybe the sequel trilogy fans, or the fans who grew up with the sequels as kids, grow out of those films, but still, that may be what gets them into Star Wars. Either way, I'm excited to see what will happen with Ewan McGregor coming back as Obi-Wan Kenobi in his own Kenobi series that's coming out in 2022. It will be a limited series, probably 4 to 6 episodes, 1 hour apiece, and with Ewan reprising his role as Obi-Wan, and rumor has it Hayden Christensen reportedly returning as Anakin Skywalker as well, I think the series is going to live up to a lot of fans' expectations. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe because it does help out the channel. I'm Star Wars Only. I will see you all next time, and may the Force be with you always.